What is up, Bakas, and Merry Christmas. Today, as of recording, it is Christmas Day. I just got back from family meetings and all of that stuff. Had some fun stuff, and... crap. Hold on. Oculus Quest 2, which I may or may not be doing VR series. Has it finally loaded those PC games? No, it hasn't. I'm going to need the adapter cable. And I told my mom about it. She already said she ordered it, which is good, because that little adapter cable there does not work. Also, funny controller. Funny. It looks like weird ring thingy. Onion ring. I could eat that thing for breakfast. Anyways, today is developers' commentary on Gallarous, because I was bored. And I decided to go over really old parts of Gallarous that the realm's not been out for about 2 months, about almost 2 months. So I decided to take a look back at everything in the game, what was cut and what wasn't, and everything in between. Alright, so first things first that we can do, let's go over spawn. Spawn was originally these two towers, this building, and this building. There was no large mountains, gardens, statues, little event area back there. Oculus isn't working with. Click here to check our support arc. No, I'm not going to do that. Anyways, the soul thing. This did exist. The warp room didn't even exist. The warp room came into existence because I started running out of space. Alright, well that's the first big deal. Now it's time to move on to the second thing, which is older warps, I guess is a good way to put it. Let's see if I can find this out without breaking everything. If I Control C my Google Docs file and spam Control Z enough times, is it working? Is it going back? No? It's not? Nah, it's not. Never mind. Well, never mind that idea. But it did exist for a while. There were a lot of coordinates in that one area, which I do not seem to be able to get back. Essentially, there was a city warp, and that was about it. This was supposed to be a city warp, and although I probably won't get these coordinates correct, I think it was somewhere around here. It was around 5,000-ish. Definitely not around here. This is New World Regeneration, so definitely not around here. However, there is a high chance that it was, because I do believe it existing around here. Anyways, so, god damn, I can't get distracted. Cool caves. I just accidentally pressed the Windows button, started typing in the Windows bar /TP. But, anyways, there was event at one point going to be a city warp. However, a bit of it's because Gibbs didn't really work on it that much. A bit of it's because other issues, but it was scrapped and replaced in a future place. I have a plan for some sort of city area in a future Galarian realm, but not Atricious. Definitely not. Maybe a few hints of it, but not fully. After all, it split multiple than two, didn't it? Anyways, so what's next? Oh yeah, warp room. The warp room was, well, first of all, this was added in the final installation. There was only one of you until he split the world in two, which is a reference to if you play Atricious, you'll know. If you read the lore books, you'll know. But when it came to the warp room, this was originally kind of like this, except a bit longer. And it had the Dark Lord symbol, which is the four, I guess, pickaxe looking things like this kind of thing sticking out all around. And the only warp that existed at first was Ocean Warp. This was the first warp. Speaking of, let's go into Ocean Warp and talk about things in Ocean Warp, shall we? This did not exist. This was Czar's contraption. I don't even know how it works. And I'm not even going to bother to find out, because it seems complicated. Anyways, this is where Prismite was created, which... Prismite and gallarous, there's a reason why it's so powerful and atrocious. It's because I really didn't give it the love it should have deserved, and in return, nobody ever used it, other than those willing to go the cheap route. Since what are these things here? I hate that I never got rid of those. Anyways, this was the Sea Lord. As you can see, the Dark Lord symbol. Every boss that was related to the Dark Lords has this symbol, which also relates to some of the other areas. For instance, if I believe in either the Crimson Crafter or the Crimson Altar, there is this symbol. But why don't we go into the... Oh, that I wasn't supposed to do that. That's a sussy thing I did. Oh, never mind. It's not breaking anything. I think it's this one that I programmed. Yeah, this was the one that I literally made myself my own hole for me to break when I went in here, so that way I didn't have to worry about water. But anyways, I don't know why this is here, actually. I'm going to be completely honest. Here's some of the stuff. Morquito. Morquito was a fun character. I actually planned to have him somewhere in the Trixison realms after him, because although he is dead, the things he had didn't all travel with him, obviously. You know, if you die, your house doesn't die, it just goes to someone else, I guess, is a good way to put it. But that's some of it. Even though, what else is here? This is before boss dialogue, and this was probably the weirdest boss I had to program because of how small and tight the area was and how unique it was, I guess. A fully underwater boss, one where I did not play my cards right. Why did I get pinged? Hey, I found a way out, you're good now, but you know what, never mind. I was offline for a while. Now, if we go back up to Ocean Warp, back out of... That's another thing that I didn't bother to do in Atricious was major tick delays because of that. It really gets irritating. Anyways, let's start out where it all began now, despite the fact that I already did Ocean Warp. Fun fact, Sea Lord was the 6th boss ever made, I believe. Yes, he was actually. He was the 6th boss. And he really shows for that. But however, this area, Ice Warp, my favorite area, the first time I used World Edit, in fact, Ice Warp wasn't even supposed to be Ice Warp at the start. It was supposed to be where the old Clockworks was. I had the old Clockworks planned since 1.0, and I actually wanted to put it, I believe it was either here or Ruins Warp. However, I decided to scrap the idea after realizing how big I'd have to make it, and decided to save it for a different update. And then I discovered flash fill commands are basically baby versions of World Edit, and I went to town. And now you have what is Ice Warp. Down here, ooh, and he sticks the landing. This is where Mama spawns. We had our own little designated area for it, I guess. Along with this, Mama herself, she was the first boss I had ever made. This was the first boss I had ever made on Gallarous, and later on I came back to update it with a few things. For instance, I believe I gave it armor later on. It has the set block. I believe it also has the Rotten Clear. Yeah, this was a boss I came back to several different times to not only get the right functions, being a decent functional boss, but also update as I became smarter with my command systems. At first, this wasn't even how the command systems went. They didn't have test wars. What would happen, and this is still the old system because for gas queens and gas queen or mob spawned outside of arenas because there's no real way to track their position after they die. But if let's say we spawn in an entity, let's get polar bears. What we'd have to do is we'd have to give it a block. So let's say we gave it snow. Obviously it's not going to pick up the snow, so we'd have to throw it in its inventory. But different mobs had different chances of dropping items. Sometimes they were closer to 0%, other times they were really high up. So most bosses, well, a few bosses just would never drop their items. Captain Redbeard especially, I could never get him to drop the item he needed to drop in order to trigger the loot chest, which is why husks, by entities he summoned, would drop the loot instead. But of course, you know, that really made him an exploit. But yes, that is a fun fact about the bosses themselves. Also, they didn't used to have armor as well. Mama did not originally have armor. Did you know? Wait, no, you're not Mama, you're the imposter. Played Among Us yesterday and I got like 10 wins as imposter. I'm such a sussy boy. Anyways, we have done most of Ice Warp. Also, another thing, this elytra here actually, if I break it and shit, that's not gonna work. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Basically, if you craft an elytra through the crafting recipe, a fun thing happens. It actually spawns a destroyed elytra instead, which I'll get to right now, because the next spot we're going to is the second warp ever made, and the only warp in Gallarous with no boss. Gotta make sure I got that right. Yep. Been a while since I've been here. But while we're here at Crimson, I can say this, there was a long period of time where I was just spamming these trees with a world edit command block, just filling all Crimson stuff to Ancient Breeze. Some of that didn't remake it out here this far, which is why these trees are still not non-petrified, I guess. And directly under here is the Crimson Crafter. This is the biggest boy out of them all. Even the Jungle Crafter on Atricious, which is the biggest pit I've made so far when it comes to the crafters, is not as big as here. I'm not going to count the Ancient Crafter because the Ancient Crafter doesn't have walls around the bottom of it. But we had some fun items down here. This is where we had our glowing obsidian, our end portals, our fire, our cameras, tripwire, bubble columns, you know, the usual. We ended up breaking Curse of Binding leather suit that we tried to give to someone as a prank and it didn't work out. This is where the ores are for the different materials. That was a stupid idea I had. And there's a reason why it's not in Atricious, because I just didn't find it a cool idea. And I didn't even understand why I made it in the first place. But here, as you can tell, some of these are secret recipes that nobody even knew. I bet nobody knew that bone meal and this can make this. I doubt anyone found out that this made a camera. This made stone cutters. And these were the Kryptonite items. In fact, Kryptonite in Gallarous is a different color code. Kryptonite in Gallarous is this color. However, Kryptonite in Atricious is this. It's a discrepancy that you won't really notice unless you compare the two, I guess, but it existed. And I changed it. Also, weapons in the sets were called Of Insanity, not Kryptonite, which was changed into Trictious. Probably because I ran out of time, but still. These three were the furnace commands that I just had down here. And most of these, if we just take a look, there were some grid crafters I made. For instance, that was nether wart. This was the stack craft for kryptonite. This was warped fungus. A lot of these did not see the light of day, as you can probably guess. But they were there for anyone who bothered to try and find them. However, a lot of these are probably still unknown to this day, so I might as well show most of them. Along with this is probably why the Crimson Crafter had so many, and probably why I maxed it out so quickly, was because I just kept putting in weird recipes, but I didn't put the recipes public, so a lot of these are just Easter eggs that you probably wouldn't even know existed, and probably didn't even bother to know. I think we're getting back to the stuff that was well known. Maybe not that trident, but still. There's soul fire. Along with that, soul armor is not in a Trictious. Fire extraction is not in a Trictious. What other things? Bone armor did not make it to a Trictious. Obsidian armor did, though. Obsidian armor was a lot of people's go-to armor for when starting Gallarous, which is why it stayed in a Trictious. You know, you didn't really see anyone go for soul armor once they killed the Flame Lord. It was kind of already past the level that they were at. I never really took into consideration how far someone would get to grind to the point of fighting the boss, and not necessarily think of how long it would take. I didn't necessarily think what armor type people would actually have at the time, because a lot of people end up fighting the bosses at around netherite, despite most of them being fightable at, like, you know, iron or diamond at least. A few other things real quick. Alright, anyways, sorry about that. This is the Sword of Insanity Fire. This was a weapon that I did not bring back to Gallarous. I mean, to a Trictious. However, it was a West Sword with Fire Aspect 10, which, to put that into comparison, the average... Fire Aspect 2 sets a player on fire for about 8 seconds. This sets you on fire for about 40. And it was a very powerful weapon if you were smart with it. In all reality, you could just smack someone once with it and run away, and if they didn't have fire resistance, they'd die to the burn damage. Or if they didn't have any regen either. It was a very useful weapon to start off with, but its only major upside was the Fire Aspect 10, which surprisingly wasn't used as much as I thought it was. But what other things are a good thing to mention in this area? Oh yes, the Crimson Altar. Why don't we talk about this? You! I misplaced the structure block. This is why this one's shorter than all the others, but bet you never even noticed it, but that one's the shortest out of all of them because I misplaced the structure block, and I didn't make that mistake again. This was the Crimson Crafter. This is Lisquid. That's where I would just sometimes turn on Lisquid. And these were command blocks for bosses. For instance, this was the Champion. This was the Tomb Spider. This was Clocksmiths. This one's 2 blocks longer because it required 4 things to make. It was a test for and a delete command. An extra of each of those. This was Ender Gang. Slime thing or whatever. I forgot what they're called. Slime Bros. Sea Lord. Temple's Keep, Lauren and Atticus, Diamonds. I want to say. I'm pretty sure I know who this is. I forgot his name. Ancient One. Rot. Flame Lord. Oh, this was just a set for a secret item. You can make Frosty Waders if you had Frosty Boots and Lava Waders in the same group. That's why that one's shorter. One less delete command and one less test command. Redbeard and Mama. And these were all the structure blocks to load them. It would teleport each one of these, so it would teleport. So say I wanted to do Mama. I believe this was Mama. No, you. Yep, you were Mama. It would teleport this one up there, and then it would place a redstone block on it to do it. If I were to actually take the items, so say I take gold, emerald, diamond. Yep, you can see the structure block show up, and then the redstone show up, and that's how it worked. It would basically load the entity and destroy all the blocks in the way as well. And that's how the summons worked. How these little book areas worked was actually pretty simple. Just one book under. I'd write a book, I place it in the chest, I place it under this, or in other ones I just place it under the clone command block and then clone it on top. If I were to delete this, so say I took this, deleted it, now it's not there. But if I place it, now it's there. Which is a very fun thing. On top of this, I think that's everything in this area. The Crimson Warp had a lot of surprise. Oh, the Gas Queen. I knew I was missing something. The Gas Queen systems were unique. It would essentially slash clear you of these 3 items, and then if that successfully worked, it would set the block down here to redstone, set block 1, clone 5. It would load queen tier. I don't even know why the fuck that's that there or whatever. But that's what it would do. It would. Now this isn't the same system I had for King Deadly, who's a similar boss in Atricious, but Red made that one. I didn't make that one. Which we do things separately when we do our commands. So is that this was the prison. This prison. Well, let's not talk about what this substance is, but this material. This was because for our first hacker on Gallarous. Actually, I don't think he was hacking, but I believe he took chorus fruit, ate it, got under the Crimson Crafter, and stole all the Crimson items, and basically gave me a little hunt down of a little scavenger hunt of going around the warp and collecting all the Kryptonite items to put them back in the chest in their systems. And he left shortly after. He did not like that we gave him Unbreaking 32k Curse of Binding leather armor. From what I remember correctly, he left after. Anyways, that's that for that warp. Now let's talk about women's... No, not women. That's for a different debate. Alright. And this is the Ruins Warp. Originally, this was meant to be a majorly large port, which ended up being in Atricious. But this entire pirate ship was my whole design. I really enjoyed doing it. I don't know why this is over here, but whatever. And originally this was the only thing here in this warp. The ruins area over there didn't exist. This didn't exist. I still don't know what it is. I think it's just supposed to be a watchtower that was in ruins. And this entire area was just meant to be for one boss and to go out and explore, I guess. Like hell, you don't go 2 feet out of the warp and you already see a bridge made by someone. You know, this is the kind of stuff I love to see. People actually playing. Like, I like it when people fight the bosses and do stuff, but, you know, I also enjoy it when they're not, you know, just grinding all the time sometimes. I don't know, it's fun to see a good mix. And that's always what I try to strive for. This ruins was actually Bob's thing, and this originally had a boss in it. And this boss would summon when you got here, and it respawned once it was killed. Oh my god, that's so weird looking at that now. This was originally supposed to be a fog-esque thing. It's obvious that cobwebs are transparent now, or they didn't like save to save through the world file or something, because the cobwebs aren't here. But this would be a sort of fog. Now this actually did cause a lot of FPS lag up there because of all that fog. And this was under the area. Down here there would be a little chest. This would be the inside of a tree. And that's about all I know for this area for the most part. Most of this was Bob's doing, and I didn't have much to do with it myself. And as I slowly make my way up, another fun thing, Redbeard was actually somewhat based off of the fact that Red's my friend. Some of it based off the fact that Redbeard sounds like a pirate name. So you got Blackbeard, you got Metalbeard, you got who else? I don't know. There's a lot of beards in pirate names, so why not Redbeard? And I just went with it. And Redbeard is and probably always will end up being the most popular boss, because Redbeard, unlike other bosses, drops a lot of valuables. This is kind of my way of, I guess, giving a reason to kill the bosses. You know, kind of like a starter, like, oh, I killed this guy, I get some really nice loot, let's go kill more bosses and see what else I can get. And that's kind of where I started off at. That's also why Redbeard's boss tag isn't that good, is because it was only meant to be, really meant to be a loot kind of boss, not a kind of like on Gallarous a lot. I kind of ended up separating the boss into two categories: the kind that had good loot and the kind that had a really good boss tag. And sometimes they'd intertwine. Those were usually the best bosses, but, well, at least the best bosses to kill. And other times I'd make it such and such. For instance, let's take Temple's Keep. Temple's Keep gives strength and haste when he's killed. But his loot is extremely good. It actually has one of the items required to kill the final boss in it. Now, Temple's Keep is a hard boss. He's tough to fight. He is more of, in my opinion, I'd say a mix, to be honest, because strength and haste weren't exactly buffs given out on Gallarous at the time, and, well, they weren't given out by auto buffs. And on top of that, the Axe of True Insanity was a really powerful weapon when killing the final boss. It is extremely powerful. It's one of the weapons that you'd want to use for the Dark Empress, which was a boss that was meant to be, you know, Light Trials version of the Dark Emperor. Now, where else? Green Warp was a warp that I left to Bob, and for a while it left completely undeveloped, and one day he did a good job. And that was the day this warp was made. I do like this warp, although it never really served a major functionality. I like the scenery, I like how big it is, he went out, and I concur that it was a cool and very nice warp. And although I never put a boss here, I believe there was plans to put a boss there. I probably should have. I forgot about you, I'm sorry. I forgot you also didn't have a boss. But now we can cut up to the last two warps outside of this area, starting with the Flame Lord's Altar. The Flame Lord's Altar was the last area I made in 1.0. It was made about 3 days before I was going to actually release Gallarous. And I was just bored, so I was like, hey, why don't I make this cool boss? And I just thought of an idea, made it, and this was the end result. This boss is probably one of the ones you want to fight. Not only is it a main boss, but it also grants fire resistance when you kill it, which makes your nether travel experience a lot more nicer, saying that there's fire everywhere here. And this boss all around was somewhat difficult to program, I guess you could say. This is one that I guess deserves an honorable mention of going into its own guts. These commands here would teleport each of the blaze names. This is why the blazes have different names in all reality, because each and every single one needed a different... It would basically teleport that blaze to this spot. For instance, say you were to take a... what's it called? Say you were to name a normal blaze like Blazer or something. It would teleport up here. That is a really weird but fun fact. And this area kills old blazes, so in a funny, I guess, weird-ass way, this area is a blaze farm? I don't know. It's weird to explain. On top of this, why do blaze rods burn in fire? They're literally rods made out of fire. Why do they burn in fire? Anyways, that's my rant on that. But originally the Flamemaker did not look that... It was not that cool. The Flamemaker, this is where I kept my portal blocks. The Flamemaker was originally a lot sussier. A lot suckier. It doesn't seem like I got a version of it beforehand. But it did not... It was not very good at first. And then I made it a somewhat decent weapon. But that is the Flame Lord's Altar. Oh. Hold up one moment, boys and girls. Alright, I'm back, sussy boys. And today... not today. That's still Christmas. Anyways, it's time to go into the jungle area. The jungle crafter may be a bit bigger than the Crimson Crafter. You'd have to compare width, but you have to compare them by length and width. But the jungle crafter itself is a lot, has a lot more stuff in it, I guess is a good way to put it. I did remember putting a lot in here. However, a lot of it was armor sets and not as much like the Crimson Crafter. For instance, that's Amethyst. I'm sure this is like bone. Where's Prismite? No Prismites around here. Maybe up here. No, that's Jungleite. Yep, Prismite. Prismite's around here. Another fun thing to mention about Atricious that is not in here. Materialinators and Extractinators. Those were two different types. Extractinators had Soak Touch. Materialinators had Fortune. I just scrapped the idea because it was kind of silly that you needed to spend an extra 2 of a material just to get a higher level, just to get a level of Fortune, or else you were screwed and had to use a pickaxe with Soak Touch, which is why that was removed. Now it's time to get to this boss. This is probably my favorite part of the Rotten Jungle, and I really think I worked on it a lot better in Atricious with the go-kart ride. But I enjoyed this part, making it. And the Rotten Jungle looks very beautiful when you're in the cave, at least. And the arena itself has this small meteor. This meteor, if you read the lore books of Gallarous, was supposed to be the meteor that sent the rot here. Now, as we all know, the rot's like a... What the fuck? Is the rot alive? Hold up a moment. I think the rot may be alive. Hold up. Oh. Nope, just a lot of rotten zombies. The rod itself wasn't alive. Oh, yeah, it was. It was alive. I forgot there's no defeat message in gallarous. But, anyways, so, the rod itself had a lot of commands because it had to spawn all 10 rots, which would spawn them all in different positions. I think these were the ones. No, wait, I'm on the wrong side. This, rotten, 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 rotten. A lot of rottens, probably from about here, here, and here. And then I think a little bit of here. Yep. About right there as well. And it would spawn all the rottens at a certain angle away from the rot, which is kind of how they all worked. But yeah, that was essentially how the rot spawned them. And these little commands were all just for this. This was to make sure that the rot stayed invincible until all the once all the rottens were dead. These would just keep the rot invisible and keep him with resistance. Once this went off, it would clear the rot. And I now realize that these commands were set to unconditional, weren't set to unconditional. Then again, I just realized if I did set them to unconditional, then this command wouldn't even matter in the first place. But yes, these systems would allow the rot to stay active, I guess. This would give the rot some abilities that it should always have, so that way when its effects did get cleared, it didn't become helpless. It would still be a threat in an opponent. It just wouldn't be the other way. This was something that's existed since the rot boss was even made. This little bit of water. I never understood why this existed, but it's just persisted throughout all of gallarous. And I've never understood it. It just exists, I guess. And I never bothered to get rid of it either, because it's kind of just been there as long as this area's been around. That's most of the Rotten Jungle. Now it's time to go on to the next area of the game, which would be the Warp Room. I already talked a bit about this area, so we're going to go straight to this area right here. Cavern Warp, probably my favorite, and definitely inspired the way you fall into the Queen's area. The Cavern Warp, I kind of wanted to make this area start off, I guess, kind of shock, almost. Like, you spawn up, you're like, oh, this is cool, and then you're falling. God dang it, why? Alright, you, like, start off, kind of, like, start up pretty high, and then you just, oh, God, and then bam. And I remember a few people actually being shocked by it, which is probably good. That guy that did what it was supposed to do. This cavern has the Amethyst Recipes in it. All of them, too. That was a real pain to hide that many recipes in one warp. But I did it. This had a recipe book in it. And I believe down here there's another recipe. Yep. Pickaxe. Amethyst armor gave really good effects. Better than Jungleite in this one. In Atricious they give one level tier lower, so that way I guess it doesn't make you super buff just to have really inexpensive objects. But this was the Cavern Warp. This was actually part of an event that Gibby had with the peanut. I don't know where he hid every single one, but he did hide one very specific one that I know its location of. And the way I know its location is because it was either Bob or Gibbs or someone who placed this stuff. The peanut not work. That, you heard me right. The peanut not work. It ain't working. Sorry, but it ain't working, and I ain't twerking. Anyways, this was the Cavern Warp boss. It spawned two of them, the slime, the magma cube and the slime, and the boss fight consisted of, well, if you didn't have fire resistance, you'd have to hop around the magma blocks or be on them for very limited time, and the slime made you a lot more mobile when you were on it. However, you were punished for not just jumping on it every single turn by magma block damage. That was if you had fire resistance. If you had fire resistance, this made this boss a bit easier, especially since there was what's it called? Since the slimes and the magma cubes kind of bounce off the slime blocks a bit, and it makes them a lot less mobile. I don't know, it's weird to explain, but that was a bit of this boss. And of course, these deep slate ores were added after the 1.17 update. I was just like, oh hey, these are cool. Let me just add them. And what else was there? I think that's everything for this area. The slime bros themselves weren't too big of a technological feat. However, this was the first boss where I had multiple enemies, which meant that there were multiple test fours for a summon system. In fact, if I do recall correctly, both of them could drop the loot, making it a lot more common. Some of the loot's still left in there, not all of it though. But yeah. And that's actually what inspired later bosses, which you'll see coming up soon. Since we're past Cavern Warp, this goes and takes us to the 1.4 update. And the 1.4 update, since we skipped 1.2 for doing Ocean Warp early, consisted of Old Clockworks and Endergang's Forest. Endergang's Forest was a very nice area for me to build. It felt like a nice break from big open areas into a creepy dark forest that reminds me of Slender Man. For instance, if we say time, set, night. This place is really nice at night, because especially this walkway, because you can't even use vision in this boss fight. Why would you even matter? And you might wonder, what do you mean by that? Booshican gaming, the gaming of the booshican. Well, what I mean by that is because this boss would give you blindness. And this was actually a system that really took me a bit to get. This is the old test 4 system for an entity and then it'd do something, but I didn't switch it back because this boss actually ran off of RNG on what chest you'd get. Different chests gave you different loot. You get a bunch of the deep slate items through this one. You get a lot of end related items through the Leo set. This one was the Grayson set. Not set, chest, but this is Caliban's chest. It gave a lot of honey. Beehives are banned on Gallarous because of hack clients, so that's why that was like that. Drip leaves, moss, glowberries were in Stewart's, and then Anastasia's was a bunch of other lush cave items. Remember, the lush caves were technically existing, but you couldn't really get the stuff for them beforehand. It was really, really weird how that worked. And that was kind of just the whole system to how it went with that kind of stuff. Anyways, so what else was with this boss? Not much, actually. It was a bit fun, I guess, but that was pretty much it. And this would remove the Ender Gang tag from you, making sure that you didn't have it still. Because there's 2 tags this boss will give you. The one for the Ender Gang and one for the God damn it, I gotta get rid of this a different way. The one from the Ender Gang and one from the what's it called? I'm trying to remember what it was called. Ender Gang, what else? Ah yeah, from the start of it. There's 2 tags. Sorry for my stuttering, it's like 8 o'clock where I'm at right now. Been up since like, I don't even know. This was probably my greatest accomplishment solo without before gallarous really got any sort of traction, I guess, because I still hate that. It's also my greatest failure because every single time I go in this warp, I have to see that tiny little clock tower. I wish I made this bigger. I wish I made that taller, but I didn't, and I have to live with it every single time I see this warp. It's been 2 months since gallarous was reset, and I still have nightmares over that clock tower. But the old Clockworks was a very fun area. It basically told a kind of story about the people here and how they worked at this place, and there was a haunting. And the thing that was here was the Clocksmiths, which was a Dark Lord of Time. And this would fling you up here, and ta-da, you fight the boss. This is where you'd fight the boss once you got all the clock pieces, one of which being the other boss in this area. Along with that, this is also the only area with 2 different bosses in it. One being the Clocksmith and the other being the Ancient One. I do not believe that what's the area called? I do not believe that Atricious has any. Maybe I just forgot about it, but I don't think I ever put 2 bosses in one area on Atricious. Yet, at least. But yeah, that was a lot of this area. As you can see, players have obviously, you know, waxed the copper here, and I hate when they do that. I hate that you can just use an axe. Wish it was something more like, I don't know, water or something. Something that you could actually, like, deal with on a regular basis rather than have some kid with an unbreaking tin axe just run around undoing everything, killing one entity, getting all of his durability back, and to die, he's back to normal. Anyways, past my insatiable rants for what I wish and wish'n't, I shall now go to the next area. Old Clockworks, it was nice seeing you again, but you know what? No, there's one thing I didn't mention. I should mention this. The Clocksmiths. This was, if gallarous had its developer droughts, this would be one of them. This thing took so long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And 5 on each row. This was the second part. This was the first, and this was the third. Essentially, how this boss would start is it would do 1 o'clock. Then after that, it would spawn the 2 o'clock enemies. Then it would spawn the 3 o'clock, then the 4 o'clock, then the 5 o'clock. Then it would spawn the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And then the entity area. Wait, hold up. No, I got this all wrong. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Then then one of the Clocksmiths. Then 5 o'clock, 6, 7, 8, and then one of the bosses, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, and then another of the major bosses. And once you did that all, you got 1 chest for doing the second part, 1 chest for doing the third part, and 1 chest for doing the first part. I don't know why I put them in that order, but I did. Please do not yell at me. And that's the Clocksmiths. This was probably the one boss where it had the most phases in it. In fact, it's the only boss that had any sort of, well, only mainline boss, I guess. There's one other boss in gallarous that has multiple phases. And Atricious, no boss has multiple phases. I haven't gotten to a point where I have put one down with phases. But that's that one. Ocean Warp, we already been to. Now it's time, I guess, to get to... I never finished this, did I? Didn't I? I never changed the sign. I should have changed that sign a long time ago. Before we do that, let's head back in the future to 1.7, the Golden Coliseum. This area is fun for the sheer fact that I made a cool skeleton horse. That's about it. I'm not even kidding with you. The Golden Coliseum didn't have really anything too special going for it, other than a cool fighting area with a fun boss. But in all reality, that was just what it was. Anyways, Starlight Cape. Starlight Cape was probably one of my favorite areas, because it was based off of a game I played. And I originally made the train, and the train sucked, so Gibbs came in and did it for me. Thank you for that, Gibby. Gibby, Jibby, 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 Gibby, Wibby. Alright, anyways. Other than randomly shouting my friend's name, this was actually meant to be a mainline boss. I kid you not. The tomb spider was originally a Dark Lord. And I realized, hey, that's stupid, but it'd be a cool minion. So I made it that way. And that's why this area is like this. The tomb spider itself didn't have anything special with it. In fact, I beg to offer that it's probably the most useless boss to fight in gallarous. It's so useless, I forgot what its ability, oh yeah, you move in spider webs. Well, spider webs is a percentage move debuff instead of a set debuff. So, even with speed 10, you're still going slower than a normal person does outside of a cobweb. And that was just how the cookie crumbled. Toxic Bogs, though, unlike its brother, was a very, very fun area because of the poison effect that you get when you're in the water. This poison effect would pretty much drain you instantly, like game mode S. You can already tell I'm not doing too well. Now, the Toxic Bogs would not kill you. However, anything short of pretty much anything short of getting hit by a snowball would kill you. I don't even know if a snowball could kill you. It might. I don't even know. But the boss here would actually cure you of this effect, which is probably the first time I ever used a boss that would give you an effect that allowed you to explore its area better. Because obviously, yeah, there's a bridge here and there's a chest over there that you can hop on these lily pads to get to. But say that you're not very good at parkour like me sometimes. Well, once you kill the boss, you can just swim on over. The water won't affect you. Same goes for like crafting recipes like that one. This crafting recipe, unless you're a little bitch who ups their FOV, you might have a bit of an issue seeing it. Which is why I guess getting the tag is a good idea. Lauren and Atticus was nothing too special for a double played boss. However, it was very fun to watch people fight it. It's a very strong boss that I wouldn't recommend fighting without Jungle Light at least. And finally, the last area 1.5 and the last area before the final boss. I thought that wasn't going to let me in. The Temple of Insanity. Oh my god. After building the Temple of Insanity and Atricious, I can see I made the walls a bit too small. It's a bit too late to go back now. But oh, yeah, someone did this. Some asshole put a blue dye on all of them because they thought that would be funny. Well, god damn it, I can't cuss this much. But I wanna fucking YouTube. Am I right or am I wrong? Or am I righter than right? If you're hearing this, YouTube, I totally agree with your systems. Totally. Don't take me down, please. I'm an innocent little boy from a poor family, sparing his life from this monstrosity. I'm gonna get copyright striked if I continue. I think this one was maybe, I don't know, gear actually kind of looks cool like that. But this was what it would normally look like without some idiot going out of their way to do that. God dang it. Family equals item used to work. Why does that not work anymore? Can I not just put the family as item? Item is still a type of entity family, I guess. It's weird. It still saves some of the stuff from the Crimson area. But anyways, the Temple of Insanity, the arena was a bit smaller thanks to these recipes, but the boss, Temple's Keep, oh boy, this guy is an honorable mention. This guy was the semi-final boss of Gallarous. This guy was not meant to be fought without the best of the best armor. You were supposed to be stacked to fight this guy, and what did people do? They fought it with iron swords. And they killed it because they just kept on going through the portal until Temple's Keep eventually died. And then they took all the loot and called themselves pros at the game. No, you were not a pro. You just died over and over and over again until you eventually got lucky and killed it. Which is why Temple's Keep has a unique ability that other bosses do not have. Surely because of those idiots. I think he knows who I'm talking. I think the specific person knows who I'm talking about. Essentially, these commands here would say it. If I get close enough to hear it, it'll trigger. Yeah. It basically tests if I'm there, and if I'm not in the arena, it would start healing Temple's Keep really fast. And that was a system put in place for this boss. This is the only boss that you cannot just go right back into after you die. This boss will reset. This progress will reset. Outside of, I think, actually no, his armor does reset as well. Now, I can't reset his totem, obviously, but if you die after he popped his totem, he's still going to be at full health when you come back and have regen. And Temple's Keep itself was unique because it was the first boss with dialogue. And this boss dialogue may not work anymore. It may not work. It does not seem to work anymore. They updated the way they updated the way Telra commands work. This happened around the start, about mid 1.17. This is something that Doombringer also had an issue with. Doombringer's original thought told the entire story, but because of this update, I have yet to fix it because I've been working on other things and I haven't gotten to fixing Doombringer's original dialogue. But that's the same thing that happened to him. For some reason, they changed the way Telra commands work in a command block. And that really annoyed him. You saw the Ancient Crafter earlier. There's nothing really special with this one. Same goes with the Light Crafter. They didn't really have anything special. The Ancient Crafter was only used for Ancientite, I believe. Most of this is Ancientite if I just look around it. And this was the only unique thing, which was the boss. Which was there's different variations of it because the people would craft them in different ways and the recipes wouldn't work, stuff like that. But yeah, if you make them in the order that it lists on the sign in there, I believe it should work regardless. And speaking of that area, it's our turn to go there. Welcome to Darkmount. Ah, yes, I just love when this happens. But regardless. Queen Claw. Yeah, Power Rock, Queen Croc, Insanity, Flame, and Sea. If you do them in that order, it'll work. Speaking of that order. Oh yeah, these are never actual power papers usually. Usually I don't put the actual object in it. I just put something similar. But if we cut through here, go in, go here. This is where the boss would be. This boss was really fun to program because it would just randomly spawn stuff. A lot of the boss itself was just spawning things. And TNT, trails of chaos. Pretty much this boss could kill you, and it could really just kill you because of the way it was. As you can tell, there's a lot of repeating command blocks to this guy. This guy spawned a lot of different things. These were all the creepers, and this was the lightning. And these were just anti-entities. I don't know why I put so many around here, but I did. And this is just an exploit waiting to happen. I'm still working on this place, despite the fact that it's never going to see the light of day again, other than in file form. But you can download it. Mediafire.com/I don't know what, because I don't know. I would have to relook, and I'm not going to do that at this second. Anyways, this was the light trials room down here. Originally, this guy... Oh, hi, Lord of Light, you're here. Despite the fact that you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't have been there. I'm just saying it right now. You shouldn't have been there. Anyways. This is... Oh my gosh. Anyone who came down here would really get themselves some loot. God, I gotta stop acting... whatever. But... this boss would drop the entire light set. It would drop the... it would drop light shards too. Shards of light, I think they're called. Crap. What were they called? Chests of power, tell me. Chest of power, tell me. Chest of magic, star fragments, that's what they were called. And this would allow you two different ways, either play the credits or yeet out of the universe. And the credits would credit people, most of those being Redbeard Rich, Bob Ross the Boss, Gibby, Swag, Rovazio, and I believe Fallen. Or Premierio. I believe those were the people... Oh, and Duritz. Which, although some of those people I don't really associate with those anymore. One specific person in question. But, yeah. Now, in order to enter the light trials, we need to give ourselves the tag, booshican, light. Some of these commands won't show in my command list. But each of these levels have their own bits and parts to it. I'm not going to do every single one because most of these had nothing unique in them. However, there are a few that I will do. For instance, I believe it was Red Temple. Yep. This was Light's Keep, which was a boss similar to Temple's Keep. And this... Why are you guys down here? Whatever. This boss would deflect bullets that came at it. It's a really weird story how that worked, but it did. And it would deflect bullets so you couldn't shoot it from a far range, because the boss itself was very slow, but did a lot of damage. So make up for the fact that it was slower than the average Vindicator, it would deflect arrows, so you'd have to fight it head on. The light trials suffered greatly though, mainly due to my inability to realize, oh hey, maybe, just maybe, I shouldn't try to balance the bosses and make it easy. They're supposed to be difficult, not exploitable, but that's a bit of why I consider the light trials to be a bit of a suffrage. And why I considered it non-canon, too, was because the literal lore of this area was that the Lord of Light, who's already supposed to be an asshole in the lore, just a twisted guy, I guess, has a bad follower that you decide to kill for the reason of I kidnapped him, haha. And I found that stupid. So that's a bit of why. Now, in all reality, the story is not canon. The story of this. However, the Eclaeus person's existence, the Dark Empress, and the Lord of Light were all canon. And some of these characters in these light trials may even return in a future installment, because some of them were actually pretty good. Eclaeus especially. However, Eclaeus would be completely different. Eclaeus wouldn't be fucking Starscream. Anyways, speaking of that, not concert, it was skeleton. If we go into this one, the concert was a very unique boss because you'd have to shoot the wall and it would teleport an arrow into the room he was in and damage him. And that was how this boss worked. And this boss was a very fun one to make because it was a lot less work than I expected. As you can see, these are the different waves. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and phase 5. And at the very end, you'd be rewarded a fancy little prize. Uh-oh, that wasn't the right button. I'm gonna get copyrighted. Oh, never mind. It seems any boss with dialogue just doesn't work anymore. That's a good thing to note. Anyways, let's do add concert. And that is supposed to give us an item, but since it's decided not to, let's just... Woohoo, we got the item. Since this Telrock command update, Gallarous hasn't... The light trials especially, is probably the one part that hasn't worked out very well with this. Especially with stuff like that. Anyways, this room would be where you would spawn a boss. The Dark Empress. Now the boss probably is not going to spawn anymore, and it was the toughest boss I ever made. It was the boss that would kill you in seconds, faster than anything else. If you went into this boss without effects, you'd be lucky to come out alive. And eventually, I think the first time someone killed it was about a week after it was added by Fallen Caster. And then I think Swagger followed shortly behind. Maybe Swagger killed it first. I can't remember anymore. But someone killed it for either Premier / Fallen, or Swagger killed it first. And when this boss died, it would give these dialogue, which I don't know if anyone entered said, "Be what I want it to be, and good luck. This world is from its father being split after all." Which was a kind of, I guess, hints to the Igniosis split in Gallarous, but since it was added after the realm was finished, I didn't really count as much. Normally, this boss was supposed to give you a certain ability, and that was scrapped because of gameplay reason, because of the realm crashing midway, and I wanted to finish the boss, but I didn't want to have to go out spend another, 2 days working on this one section. So I just put a heartfelt ending to the game, ended it, bam, there, you finished the DLC. The Light Trials is probably the one area I didn't care for the most, sheerly because I did not like that I didn't give it much of a difficulty. I made it simple. Just spawn the boss, kill it, move on. I didn't make it something beyond with, I don't know, a different boss that would actually be tough. I didn't make it a tough boss. I made it an easy boss that had easy exploits to it. I never tried in that area, but I really gave up on that area too. I should never have thought programming 13 bosses into one area would be a good idea. And you can kind of see the longer they go on, then the more I deteriorated, the more the bosses themselves began to deteriorate. But afterwards, with the Golden Coliseum, at least I made some decent comeback. You're also not supposed to be coming soon. Why the fuck are you coming soon? You are not coming soon. You have already came. Now time to misspell Coliseum. But anyways, I believe that is nope. I believe that is all for all mentions for this gallarous developer commentary. This is actually pretty fun to go look back at, and probably a nice little Christmas present I can show off. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and see you boys later, and goodbye.